3 years ago, I travelled across Australia to compete in my first Brisbane Regional Championships, and I won. 2 years ago, I just barely missed out on top 8, losing a crushing winning in to end up 15th. And last season, I ran it all the way back to 2nd place, falling just short of the finish line after an incredible run. So if you thought I'd be aiming for anything less than a gold medal at the first tournament of my 2026 season, you'd be dead wrong. I was absolutely set on yet another successful Brisbane Regionals. However, there was one issue. I had no idea what deck to play. To be completely honest, October was a pretty hectic month for me. Pokemon prep just wasn't at the front of my mind, and the regionals kinda came out of nowhere. Luckily though, just a few days out of the tournament, I'd at least narrowed it down to 3 potential options. The first was Blood Moon Ursaluna, a recent pet deck that I invented and really wanted to showcase the power of, but it still had a few key weaknesses that I needed to iron out before it was ready. Next was N Zoroark, which had seen some solid success at the most recent major in Lille, and it appeared to be pretty well positioned in the Brisbane meta. I really enjoyed playing this deck, but didn't quite have the reps to run it at a major tournament just yet. And lastly, Grimmothy Snarl, Old Faithful, a classic deck that I've already done well with at an international level. I was super comfortable picking this one back up if nothing else clicked. The plan was actually pretty simple: spend as much of Wednesday and Thursday as I can grinding Zoroark and just see how I feel about it. If by then I'm confident in my ability to play it perfectly, send it. Otherwise, back in the binder. And I'll tell you what, when I hopped on my flight Thursday night, I was feeling incredible about my play on Zoroark into Dragapult and Gardevoir. But I hadn't touched a single other matchup with the deck yet. With such a wide meta at the moment, I just knew that wouldn't cut it and decided to rule out Zoroark for this event. So now the choice was between Blood Moon Ursaluna and Grimmothy Snarl. This may seem obvious at first, with Grimmsnarl being a solid meta deck and all, but I don't think you quite understand just how much I wanted to play Ursaluna. For the fans, for the culture, for the vibes. However, I was still working out some of the deck's more troublesome matchups. But I am confident that given a bit more time, I can make a serious splash with the deck. So by process of elimination, that leaves Grimmsnarl. Although I hadn't properly practiced the deck for a couple of weeks at this point, Frostlass's Freezing Shroud math is pretty much burned into my brain at this point, so that shouldn't be an issue. With an archetype now locked in, I spent the entire 2-hour flight jotting down notes and finalizing a deck list. By the time I landed, here are the 59 cards I was absolutely set on. Blood Moon Ursaluna EX, Iron Bundle, and Yveltal all felt great as tech Pokemon, each serving their own unique purpose. I also played a fairly interesting support account. See, in the current meta, it often seems that Grimmsnarl is the one who needs to draw out of Iono, rather than being the one actually doing the Ionoing. So I cut down to 3 Iono and added a Professor's Research, which, just like Lily's, is way more helpful to top deck in the late game compared to an Iono that only lets me see an extra card or 2. I've included 2 Nest Balls and only 1 Buddy Buddy Poffin, which I am a huge advocate for. I seriously cannot see the realistic value in playing 2 Buddy Buddy Poffin. To further complement this, I went with 4 Stadiums, 3 Spikemouth Gym, and 1 Artisan. These are absolutely vital for the Dragapult matchup, especially since they're all running double Jamming Tower now. Being able to access my Pokemon under item lock is a complete game changer, and I definitely don't mind cutting an Ultra Ball for this. Now for that last card, I've got 1 more free slot. I was genuinely interested in playing the brand new promo Psyduck to further counter Dragapult Dusknoir, but I didn't actually have any games with the card in my deck. So come Friday, that was the only thing I wanted to test. And after a whole bunch of games of the matchup, my conclusion is that it's kind of fine, I guess. It was nowhere near as impactful as I'd first theorized, and while it did help my initial setup, it often allowed them to easily piece together clean KOs that left no damage on my board using either Munkidori or Hawlucha. So I decided to cut it from the list and throw in a generic consistency card instead. Some extra Ball Search, another Snow Run, a bit more Gusting, even a Pokegear would all be fine options. But in the end, I went with Energy Search. This is a card I'm usually not too fond of, but with 4 Lily's Determination and only 1 Professor's Research, it actually becomes a lot more relevant, since I won't always have Dark Energy in the discard and can't rely on Night Stretcher to be my Energy Search. With that final decision sorted late on Friday night, I sent the deck list over to my mate Angus and we discussed all of the card inclusions. Then he managed to cook his list submission, accidentally clicking on Ultra Ball and getting the third Spikemuth. It's not a major difference, but it is a shame we don't get to share a matching Limitless page. With the full 60 locked in and submitted, it was finally time to get some sleep. But that didn't last long, because apparently in Brisbane, the sun rises before 5 AM and the birds outside just would not stop making noise. Anyway, after some avo toast and a coffee for breakfast, it was off to the venue. And all I wanted today was to pair a bunch of Dragapults and Gardevoirs. Looking back at the meta share, my predictions were on point, with these two being by far the most popular decks. But that is not what I hit in round 1. I'm against a Goldingo. This matchup is extremely difficult and not what I want to face. It really comes down to if you can establish a couple Frostlass and actually keep them alive. Retreat locking is usually helpful here, since they'll need to use Professor Turo's scenario in order to break the lock, meaning that they can't simultaneously use boss's orders to delete Frostlass. But the majority of successful Goldingo players are now running Prime Catcher, which does both of those things in a single card. He wins the coin flip and opts to go second. My initial setup is fine, with Monkey Dory in the active to deny any easy Soul Rock KOs, and I've got an Arven for some follow-up on the next turn. He immediately rips his own Arven for Secret Box. On one hand, it's great that he isn't playing Prime Catcher. On the other, he's just played a turn 1 Secret Box. Fortunately, there's no turn 1 KO, which buys me some time. And since I didn't prize any Snorunt or Frostlass, I'm able to Arven for Buddy Buddy Poffin and TM Evo to set them both up and really start applying the pressure. From here, I'm able to melt through his board with Freezing Shroud and close out the game with Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. He opts to go second once again, and I actually have a pretty interesting decision in my opening hand. I've got access to both Artisan and Spikemuth Gym. With only an Impidimp in the active, obviously I have to play one of these to avoid getting donked. If I play Artisan, it could be helping out my opponent in the case where they have a dead hand. But if I play down Spikemuth Gym, there's a good chance they just Arven for Secret Box and bump it with their own Artisan. This would mean I won't have access to my evolutions on the next turn. I decide to gamble on his hand being weak, because he did start with a Gimmighoul, which is less than ideal. Although a single Arven would completely fix his setup. I play down Spikemuth Gym, bench a second Impidimp, and pass the turn. He drops a Soul Rock, attaches to the active Gimmighoul, and announces continuous coin toss. I am absolutely sweating that he is about to hit that 6.25% chance at a knockout. First coin flip, that's a heads. Then he hits another heads. Luckily, third one's a tails. I'm fine, and his board looks incredibly weak. I drop my original plan of setting up Frostlass and just go straight for a rare candy Grimmsnarl. This removes my opponent's only Gimmighoul, and after he checks the next top deck, he scoops it up. A nice clean 2-0 to start things off has me feeling pretty good, especially since it's a matchup I was worried about. I'm patiently waiting at the table for my second round, and then my opponent rocks up with their Venusaur playmat, Venusaur markers, and Venusaur deck box. I am about to get jungle dumped. This matchup is not only annoying because of Grimmsnarl's grass weakness, making tanking hits an impossible task, but Mega Venusaur's solar transfer ability allows energy to be shuffled anywhere on the board, meaning I can't even trap anything with Yveltal. Throughout the first 5 turns of game 1, I am seriously struggling to find a supporter, but on the flip side, they aren't able to find Vitality Forest either. So I'm at least able to set up the Marnie's half of my deck thanks to Spikemuth Gym sticking in play. Unfortunately, without Frostlass to fix my damage numbers, evolving all the way into Grimmsnarl would just feed my opponent prizes. 180 damage from Shadow Bullet isn't enough to KO Teal Mask Ogerpon on its own, and even without Meganium in play, 3 Grass Energy is more than enough to one-shot me in return. The game grinds on for a while, and eventually, once we're both fully set up, it all comes down to their 380 HP Mega Venusaur in the active, and me needing to take just one more KO. Obviously, I'll never get through that massive HP, but I can drop an Iron Bundle and use Hyper Blower to get it out of the way, and now all I need to do is find Blood Moon Ursaluna or my one remaining nest ball to search it out off of this Lily's Determination. I thin out whatever cards I can, shuffle the rest into the deck, draw 6, and I whiff. The odds weren't incredible, but I was really hoping for a bit of a lucky break in such a difficult matchup. In game 2, I choose to go second, and all he can do is use Ogerpon's Teal Dance, attach a second Grass Energy, and pass. Okay, this is looking pretty good. I've got a solid start, benching a second Impidimp and ripping a raw Buddy Buddy Poffin for double Snorunt, then playing Lily's Determination, which draws me into 3 Dark Energy, 2 Night Stretcher, a Yveltal, a Technical Machine de-evolution, and a Spikemuth Gym. All I can do is filch to draw an extra card. Over on his side, Lily's Determination draws him into absolutely everything he needs. After he takes a KO, all I can do is shove Snorunt and evolve my benched Impidimp into Morgrim. They take a second KO with Mega Venusaur EX, but now that they're down to 4 prizes, I can finally start piecing something together. I punch the Venusaur with Shadow Bullet for 180 damage, but this isn't even enough to two-shot the plant. Don't worry, I've got a plan. See, they've actually committed 4 energy onto the Venusaur without a Meganium in play. Once they take the easy KO on my active Grimmsnarl, I can start to cook. With no 2-prize Pokemon on my side, I attach TM Devo and I owner them down to a 2-card hand, removing their only relevant attacker. But of course, they're able to top deck Lily's Determination, which somehow finds them Forest of Vitality and the entire Meganium line. It's fine though, my board is entirely 1-prize Pokemon. I can still win this. I bench Ursaluna and attach an Air Balloon. This way I can attack with it, potentially tank a hit, then retreat into Grimmsnarl for an additional attack. I even have Frostlass to set up the damage for Grimmsnarl's attack to be enough to handle Teal Mask Ogerpon. So I send up Ursaluna, I own her to 1 and take the KO on Teal Mask Ogerpon. This leaves them with just a single other Ogerpon that has a couple of energies on it and a Meganium which is enabling it to attack. And before they even draw for turn, they show me that the single card they draw for Iono is Boss's Orders. That's the game. Incredible. Well, at least it's nice to see another rogue deck doing well. Hopefully they can make it through to day 2. Actually, I was the last win that they got all day. I guess they didn't hit any more Grimmsnarls. Round 3, and I'm up against a Japanese player. There was actually a ton of international talent who traveled down, which is so sick to see. And it's also sick to see that they're playing Charizard, because I do not mind hitting this matchup. Just please no more Mega Venusaurs. Game 1, they win the flip and choose to go second. I managed to get down a couple of imps and have a decent hand to follow up next turn. They bench a few fellas, rip a Lily's Determination, and then go out of their way to promote Tatsugiri. This signals to me that they really don't have a lot going on and are desperate to find a supporter for next turn. Fortunately for me, that little guy fails to attract any customers and completely whiffs. This is why I don't trust Tatsugiri. Because of how they played that last turn, I choose to go aggressive and rare candy out a Grimmsnarl to KO the Sushi Dragon. My opponent draws for turn, has absolutely nothing going on, and quickly scoops it up to go next. Game 2 is a lot closer, and we each set up pretty well. I establish a Frostlass, but they're able to Mist Energy Pidgeot, making it immune to TM Devo. This means I have to deal with it the old-fashioned way, with a few Monkey Dory pings and a gust to punch it with Grimmsnarl. In the end, I have 1 prize remaining, and he's about to KO my last Grimmsnarl to go down to 1 as well. But I've already got Iron Bundle in play, and he has nothing on the bench that can survive a hit. All I need is any real attacker off this Iono to 1 with Spikemouth in play and a Morgrim already on my bench. Night Stretcher, Super Rod, Nest Ball, Ursaluna, even a Technical Machine de-evolution to finish off that damaged Charizard. Or any supporter to help me find one of these pieces to seal up the game. Boss's Orders off the Iono to 1, I top deck, and it's a Frostlass. That's game 2 to my opponent. Game 3 is not off to a great start. Despite having the advantage going second, I've already mulliganed twice, so their hand should be stacked. However, he just goes Duskull, attach Fire Energy, and passes. On the flip side, my hand has some serious potential. I've only got a Snorunt in the active, but I attach a Dark Energy, attach a Technical Machine Evolution, and Lilies for 8. All I need is any other Pokemon to start evolving up. I draw my cards one by one, and would you believe it, I somehow whiffed. Not just any basics to evolve, but any basics at all. Absolutely nothing. Not even another Pokemon to stop me from getting donked. After I pass it over and fail the TM Evo, my opponent immediately rips an Arven. At this point, I am certain the game is over. A rare candy Dusknoir or Dusclops plus either Pidgey or Bidoof would be enough to end the game right here. But instead, my opponent just stares at their prizes and says, I can't, before settling for a Buddy Buddy Poffin and TM Evo to get into the game. It's a miracle that I didn't lose the game on the spot there, and I will not waste this second chance. I've got an Arven for my second turn, and we each slowly set up, trading back and forth. But with the clock ticking down and my position suddenly looking really strong, he starts to get desperate, using Charizard to power up Pheasantipity and then shoving it active to snipe my Frostlass. I'm unable to get around it and just punch with Grimmsnarl, leaving it on 30 HP while I still have 3 prizes left to take. He starts his turn, uses Spikemouth, fails it, and shuffles the deck. Then uses Buddy Buddy Poffin, fails it, shuffles the deck. Alright, I get it. I'm only going to have one more turn to win this game. Then he goes to grab the top 3 cards of his deck. I shoot my hand out to stop him. I didn't take a KO last turn, and Flip the Script is not online. I don't want to win this game off of a prize penalty for an illegal draw. Finally, he counter catches up one of my Monkey Oris that has no energy to trap it, and Iono's me to 3. And you know what? Maybe karma does exist, because I draw straight into Secret Box on the final turn of time. This finds me an air balloon to retreat, and boss's orders to bring up a 1 prize Pokemon, which I can KO using Shadow Bullet, dealing the additional 30 damage to Pheasantipity, finishing it off and taking a 3 prize turn to win the game and the set. Next up was another Grimmsnarl, and honestly, I am incredibly comfortable in the mirror match. I feel like it's incredibly skill based, and having Iron Bundle in my deck is a massive help. Gotta love that futuristic penguin. In game 1, my opponent actually chooses to establish Frostlass, which I think you're almost never supposed to do. This allowed me to stay up a board space, set up even more Monkey Dories, and eventually out-trade them. In game 2, they learned from their mistakes, but I was still able to set up a cleaner board and ensure that I was only attacking when it would actually be impactful and not detrimental to my own board. It can be a super deep mirror, but at the end of the day, it really just boils down to whoever's got more monkeys and ensuring that you aren't leaving excess damage on their board for them to play with. A nice, easy 2-0. In round 5, it's back to the regularly scheduled rogue deck pairings, because I'm up against Garchomp EX. No, not Cynthia's Garchomp EX. I'm talking about this Water Terror fella. I'm just going to flash the deck on screen, because you really got to see it to believe it. I mean, it certainly is 60 cards. But hey, it's gotten 3 wins and only 1 loss, so I guess it's doing something, right? In game 1, we both set up pretty cleanly, but I've got a Frostlass with a ton of Monkey Dories. However, you can probably imagine my surprise when he benches an Iron Hands and uses Hydrolander to power it up out of nowhere. I don't have access to Gusting this turn, so I just punch in with Grimmsnarl, pinging hands for 30. Fortunately, by this point, I've got 3 Monkey Dories established, and after he gusts one up to KO it for 2 prizes, I'm able to just set up another, move 70 damage onto hands, and even through Bravery Charm, that's enough for the KO. Game 2 is probably a lot more realistic of how the matchup should go. I set up an early Grimmsnarl and just keep swinging while he completely struggles to combo out a rare Candy Garchomp. That one was certainly interesting, but I can't complain. A win's a win. Finally, it was time to verse my first Dragapult. This was one of the matchups I was actually pretty keen to hit and spent a lot of Friday testing. Game 1, I win the coin flip and get to go second. He misses a turn 1 energy attachment and doesn't have Badoo in the active. This means that I can go a bit more aggressive with Frostlass and a few Monkey Dories, since there is a lot of pressure on his energy attachments and he probably won't have time to go out of his way to set up Monkey Dory. Because of this, I'm able to punch into the active Dragapult and move enough damage so that a bench Dracloak can be KO'd by Frostlass. However, my opponent is too quick to bench Fez and draw 3 before I can stop them. Unfortunately, that's going to be a double prize penalty for them, which means I need to take 2 less prizes in order to win the game. At this point, the game is functionally over, so they just go next. I always try my best to help out my opponent and avoid these things. It's just not how I want to win. During game 2, I have to go first, but I manage my stadiums well, only playing them down when I'll actually get solid value, since they can be easily bumped by Jamming Tower, and I really need them in play while under item lock. We end up with a much closer game. I'm able to piece together 5 prizes while maintaining a full HP Grimmsnarl, but he's cleared out all of my Monkey Dories. After an Iono to 1 and a punch into my Grimmsnarl, all I need to see is either Iron Bundle or Boss's Orders. My 1 card off Iono is Night Stretcher, but Brian Bundle isn't in the bin just yet. Then I top deck Professor's Research. I am feeling so valid for my deck building decision. Imagine if that was Iono, I'd only have 1 more chance at the bundle, but this way I get 7. Both of the Nest Balls, Artisan, and Iron Bundle are all still live outs in the deck. I draw 7 and get there with the Artisan, and also 2 more Nest Balls that I drew as well. Another 2-0 sets me at a record of 5 wins and 1 loss. At this point, there are 2 rounds left in the day, and all I need is a win or a tie in either of them to guarantee my spot in day 2. And the next round is yet another Grimmsnarl mirror. Perfect. Game 1 is really smooth, and despite having to go first, I'm able to just consistently out-monk them throughout the entire game. Plus, I get to abuse a key difference in our decks. I had Brian Bundle and they didn't. This gave me way more access to Gusting around their active Grimmsnarl, allowing me to make consistent progress, whereas my opponent realistically couldn't attack into my Grimmsnarl because I had too many Monkey Dories. In game 2, I'm going first once again, but this time he takes a much more aggressive line, almost immediately setting up double Grimmsnarl and taking a couple prizes. Once I finally set up my own Grimmsnarl, I use Iron Bundle's Hyper Blower. My opponent seems kind of confused and just sends up the other Grimmsnarl. I've just wasted a card and nothing's changed, right? Wrong. See, the active Grimmsnarl was evolved by Rare Candy, while the benched one that was just promoted was evolved via Morgrim. I smack 180 into the one with a Morgrim underneath, and my opponent still kinda seems confused about the whole situation. However, next turn, it all makes sense. I rip TM Devo, KOing the active and sending the benched Grimmsnarl all the way back into Impidimp. With no access to another Rare Candy, all he can do is evolve up into Morgrim. But I've got a counter catcher to chase it down and functionally close out the game. With that win, I'm locked up for day 2 of the tournament. But there is still one round left today, and winning it would give me a massive head start on the rest of the competition. And I've paired into Dragapult Dusknoir, yet another relatively comfortable matchup. In game 1, I attach TM Evo to my active Munkidori and use it to set up a relatively risky Frostlass and a single Morgrim on turn 1 going second, making the read based on their first turn that they may struggle with energy and it should be a safe play. This was absolutely correct and opened up an easy knockout on their Draclo. All I needed to do was hit a single energy off of Lily's Determination for 8 and I'd be able to double Monkey Shadow Bullet for the KO. But by the way I'm explaining this, you can probably guess, yep, I whiffed the energy. And then again on the following turn, I whiffed another attachment to Munkidori. Unfortunately from there, with Frostlass on my side of the board, the game snowballed out of control. In the next game, I've got another strong start, immediately setting up double Morgrim on turn 1. All I've got in hand is 3 dead cards and a Lily's Determination that I really don't trust. Luckily, I get Iono to 6. Perfect. All I need is to get closer to one of my 3 Spikemuth Stadiums or 2 Marnie's Grimmsnarl. But in these 6 cards, I've got absolutely nothing. Just a whole bunch of items that I can't even play and not even a supporter for next turn. And I top deck the Research. That is so sick. I have to burn a whole bunch of resources, but it's fine as long as I can get this Grimmsnarl online. 7 fresh new cards and they are basically all supporters. Off the back of this whiff, they're able to wipe both of my Morgrims with a turn 3 Phantom Dive double Dusclops play. I am hooked. My only remaining option is a desperation play where I attempt to trap Dracloaks using Yveltal's Clutch to stall them. But they have the answer every single time. This was a really rough loss in a couple of games where I was absolutely the favorite to win. But at least I'm still in an overall position to make top cut if I do well in day 2. After everyone's wrapped up and I've heard about 100 stories of people getting cooked on their winning in, I face by far my toughest challenge of the day: braving Brisbane's terrible weather. It was absolutely pouring. All I wanted was to get some Guzman and go to sleep. And while I did successfully acquire my burrito bowl, the sleep wasn't quite as easy. Somehow the birds were up even earlier and were even louder than the day before. But it's fine, things can't get any worse, right? I paired a Golden for the first round of day 2. On top of already being a rough matchup, this one's got 2 Professor Turo Scenario, Picnic Basket, and Prime Catcher. I already mentioned it before, but this card single-handedly makes the matchup so much more difficult, since they can break Retreat Lock and KO a benched Frostlass on the same turn with a single Arven searchable card. Game 1 we both set up well, and eventually I pull off a TM Devo play while I have a single prize board and he still has 2 prizes remaining. This leaves him with only a single Golden Go available, which I KO with Blood Moon Ursaluna on the following turn. However, I was just 10 damage away from fully healing all of my Munkidoris out of range. A boss's orders and a hand attached to Soul Rock just barely gets him over the line. Game 2 is looking even better for me. He goes first, opens up Fez, and just attach passes. I attach a TM Evo and Energy onto my active Impidimp, play Spikemuth Gym, and rip Lilies for 8. This is really starting to become an unfortunate trend, but again, I draw into 0 basics. At least this time I can use Spikemuth to search out a second Impidimp and evolve it up into Morgrim. Although I really would have loved to establish a turn 1 Frostlass here. He manages to get set up and even takes the KO on my active Impidimp with Soul Rock. But at least I've got an Arven, so I can grab a Buddy Buddy Poffin and my second TM Evo to get double Frostlass online. The second TM Evo is prized. Because of this, I'm limited to going for a much more aggressive line. Evolving into Grimmsnarl, using Counter Catcher to bring up Pheasantipity, and just punching for 180. I figured that the odds of him hitting Professor Turo's Scenario to get it out of the active, Golden Go EX to evolve onto the freshly benched Gimme Ghouls, Metal Energy for Make It Rain, and the additional 7 energy required required to hit 350 damage was just way too unlikely. And taking the risk was definitely the best play in my position. But he does manage to pull that off and acknowledges just how cooked it all was. Without any Frostlass set up on my side of the board, I've got no hope for this one. With that third loss, I am now most likely out of contention for top cut. But a few more wins will still net me some cash, so I've got to keep trying. The immediate future isn't looking too great, because I've just paired arguably my worst matchup in the entire room. Now, I've complained about Goldingo being tough, but that one is absolutely winnable under the right circumstances. Mega Absol Mega Kangaskhan box, on the other hand, is pretty much an auto loss. They trade so favorably and can easily run you out of the game by ripping a key piece from your hand. And despite me winning the coin flip and choosing to go second, they still managed to open raw Precious Trolley. How good. At least my hand is relatively resilient against Claw of Darkness, having multiple lilies to hold on to after an initial oven. The matchup is still extremely tough, but they make one key mistake. After I gust up and KO their Latias EX, they get greedy and bench an additional Munkidori rather than a Pecharunt or re-establishing Latias. From here, I just counter catcher up Mega Kangaskhan and play Iono. Without any way to move its massive 3 retreat cost, I'm able to simply punch into it twice and lock up the game. Honestly, after winning game 1 with a matchup this bad, it probably would have been optimal to drag out the game with one prize Pokemon in an attempt to force a tie. But even if I wanted to try and do that as opposed to going for the win, I would have been completely unable to because I couldn't play any cards in the first place. Both games, a single Claw of Darkness completely shut me down and I wasn't able to draw out of it. Yeah, this matchup is really grim for Grimmothy. This has been a rough start to the day, but I've still got 2 rounds and absolutely nothing to gain from giving up now. While I'm sitting down for the penultimate round, I notice something unusual. While the clock has started and everyone around me is set up and playing their games, I don't have an opponent. After about 5 more minutes have passed, he finally rocks up and receives a late penalty. This means that if the game were to finish in a tie, I'd receive the win instead. My opponent is given the option to appeal this penalty to the head judge, and for some reason, they try to. Obviously, this isn't going to change anything because they were clearly late without a good reason. So all this does is waste a few more minutes. Sweet, that's good for me, I guess. Then he flips over Eevee. This is already not a great matchup. Leafeon can easily one-shot Grimmsnarl and heal up the bench while being extremely annoying to deal with. My only realistic win condition in a matchup like this is buying enough turns with Retreat Lock, but this will generally require at least some misplay on the side of my opponent. My strategy falls through in game 1 because guess what? Unlike the standard Eevee builds, which generally run a combination of 2 switching outs like Jet Energy, Professor Turo Scenario, Switch, or Kieran, this bloke is running Turo, Switch, and Prime Catcher. There is no Sparkling Crystal in his deck. He's got Prime Catcher. I have literally never seen that A-Spec in Eevees, and it really caught me off guard. In game 2, I was at least aware of that option, but it didn't make it any less difficult to play around. But after a bit of a lucky Iono, I was able to clutch out the game by swapping between retreat locking Noctowls while Frostlass ticked away. And now, with only 10 minutes on the clock, I am obviously not going to be taking any aggressive lines. Thanks to that late penalty, I'll win the set if I can just buy enough time with Yveltal's retreat lock. But he's got an absolutely broken start on his side. Piecing together a turn 2 Wellspring Ogerpon with Vitality Band to KO my Yveltal. Yeah, this guy's really got every card in his deck. I'm able to re-establish Yveltal and buy a few more turns by clutch locking a Noctowl, but he's able to break free on back-to-back turns with 2 of the 3 switching cards in his deck. And I've had no Ionos available on my side. I just don't think I'll be able to keep him out of this game. He goes down to 2 prize cards with just a couple seconds remaining on the clock. This makes me turn 0, giving him 1 more turn to win the game. But he's got a fully powered up Leafeon and fully powered up Wellspring Ogerpon on his side. And I already know that he's got a Switch and a Noctowl in hand. Because of that switch, there's nothing I can trap, and I don't have access to Iono for disruption. There's 2 Impidimps on my bench, which Wellspring Ogerpon can easily handle, and if I evolved one into Grimmsnarl, then Leafeon would take 2 prizes instead. But I can see one last win condition. I search out Blood Moon Ursaluna, attach a Dark Energy to it, and gust up Wellspring Ogerpon to knock it out. Ursaluna is tanky enough to survive Leafeon since it isn't weak to grass. Plus, I doubt he'll be able to re-establish a Wellspring Ogerpon and gust something on on the same turn. However, after counting up all the Pokemon in play, I realized that there is still an easy way for him to get the KO. Lily's Clefairy plus a full bench with Area 0 would just barely do it. I'm not sure if one of the pieces was prized or he just didn't see the line himself, but he just ends up scooping, unable to take the final prizes this turn. Not how I'd love to get the win, but it's always important to be punctual. It's time for the final round, and after some calculations, I'm pretty sure that even if I win this, I'll fall just short of the top 32, missing out on any of the cash. And if I just tie this round, then I should guarantee a top 64 placement. Finally, after all this time, I'm up against a Gardevoir. This is what I've been waiting for the entire tournament. Game 1 is a complete freebie. I set up double Grimmsnarl and hit a mid-game boss on Gardevoir to just go way too far ahead. However, in Game 2, I've actually got a Grimmsnarl and Impotent prized. So even though I get out double Morgrim, I'm only able to evolve one Grimmsnarl and he Scream Tails the other. This is still very manageable though. After I respond, I go down to just a single prize card and have a full HP Grimmsnarl left to work with. He goes for Mind Bend and Iono. Since I wasn't able to preemptively set up Yveltal, I'm not able to retreat and clutch the Monkey Dory. My only option is to take the coin flip. Tails. Because of that 30 self-damage from Confusion, he's able to break through my last Grimmsnarl, and while I do have a few turns to piece together Yveltal plus Boss's orders, I'm not quite able to get there and end up losing Game 2. With barely any time left on the clock, my opponent asks me if I want to flip for the win. Not only is this illegal and can potentially get you banned, but after that Confusion incident, there is no chance I'm risking everything on another coin flip. I happily take the tie and we both end up in top 64 anyway. So I was right and the win meant absolutely nothing. Overall, it's a bit of a disappointing finish. On the bright side, Angus managed to sneak a top 16 finish, so at least that's a dub for one of the Grimmies. And it may seem like all I got was a box of Destined Rivals and some championship points for Worlds. But actually, there is one more really important thing that I left Brisbane with. Motivation. I am not happy with my performance and I know that I can do better. I'm going to lock in for Vegas Regionals and LAIC. Trust me, I will be in top card. Thanks for watching. If you're keen on some live updates for how I go at those upcoming tournaments, make sure that you follow me on Instagram and Twitter where I've been posting a bit more. And if you want to support me even more, check out my Patreon, Metafy, and YouTube channel members. Cheers, fellas.